let's say if you could redesign submission intake from scratch today, what would you fix first?
Quality, breadth of the data, making sure that you know what your carriers and your insureds need, what the needs are of that binder that you're putting on board, and ensuring that that's just captured from day one.
Let's say over trusting AI. Where do you feel that becomes dangerous in underwriting or reporting decisions?
It's the risk of hallucination. It's the risk of the AI engines getting it wrong without guidelines, without having sort of a guidelines and boundaries that the AI tools and bits and pieces can't step outside of. As long as you've got those and you're doing responsible AI practices, then it works.
If you were advising an MGA, how can they start to craft that plan to actually be successful for the next 3 to 5 years?
Get a team around you. Build a team that understands what needs to be done. Change people, analysts, other bits and pieces that can help make those decisions and help and understand where the problems lie.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Inside Delegated Authority. Today's guest is Adrian Soper, a seasoned leader with over 35 years of experience at the intersection of insurance, data, and technology. With deep expertise in delegated authority, Bordereau processing, and digital transformation across the Lloyd's market, MGAs, and global carriers. Adrian has led the design and implementation of policy administration systems, underwriting workbenches, and data platforms, most recently at Dual UK, where he drives the evolution of a Salesforce-based policy admin system environment and operational workflows. In this episode, we explore what actually breaks when delegated authority operations scale, how data and system integration shape underwriting decisions, and what it really takes to modernize legacy processes without sacrificing control, accuracy, or compliance. Welcome to the show, Adrian.
Thank you. Great to be on.
No, amazing. To kick us off, there's a lot of people talking about applying AI in delegated authority. Where do you see the biggest gap between expectations and reality in the day-to-day operations?
From an AI perspective, the biggest gap I see is people expect it to solve everything, but it's not going to solve everything. It's going to be an assisted tool that everybody's going to use to bring in everything that's needed and bring in changes that you need to drive through. And I think a lot of those changes are still going to be thought of by the person driving. They're using the different AI tools. And those tools are going to grow in the marketplace, not just the LLMs that we've got out there at the moment, but there's going to be dedicated tools that are going to do specific tasks, specific jobs. And as long as you're bringing together all of your knowledge and you're giving that information to the tool in question, then you'll start to see the benefits and see how that's going to come across in your business marketplace.
Yeah, that's a great point that people want. I always say magic, like AI is going to solve everything. And then they start throwing everything to AI. But something that happens is data doesn't, like this platform were not built for this large amount of data when you do the personal version or I would say a test environment. What happens, let's say, when AI actually meets something like Bordereau at a scale that companies actually really use?
Absolutely. I think that the expectations are they've got to put the boundaries, put the controls, put the guide wire around the AI that they're putting in and be responsible with that implementation of AI. And that will give them a better experience and results of that AI challenge that they're trying to solve.
Yeah, no, great points. And we have seen that there's a lot of lack of trust in AI sometimes because it creates stuff or it doesn't deliver the results promised. Where do you see AI struggle the most today? Let's say, is it data quality, structure, or the way information is captured at some point upstream?
I think a lot of the challenges that people are seeing are where they don't have those controls. They don't have the boundaries set within the implementation of AI that they want to achieve. So it's the same garbage in, garbage out that we've had in the IT industry for the last 35 years. You put the garbage in, you're going to get the garbage out. The same principle applies with AI. If you don't feed it quality, responsible information that is coherent in its understanding, then you're not going to get the results that you want to see coming out of the system.
And based on what you have built and seen, how can people factor in those controls that actually will make the AI work in the best possible environment?
I think it's got to be, people need to understand that you're working with it. It's working for you. you're not working for it. It's not going to replace the person. It's something that you're bringing in, and you've got to check everything that it's doing within that workplace. You've got to have controls in place to verify the information you've got, the data that you've got coming out. Don't just trust what it's going to do, because it can hallucinate. It can give wrong answers. If you've fed it wrong information or slightly incorrect information, or even asked a slightly different question, those things are going to be what drives your outputs at the end. And if any of those are slightly off balance or off tangent, then you're going to get a slightly off balance and an incorrect and hallucinating coming out of the other end.
Yeah, that's a great point. And one of the biggest outputs that delegated or mostly MGAs do is the bordereaux. Do you feel that the bordereaux are right now still a operational challenge, even after years of the system being invented or being in place?
Bordereau generation is something that it's got so many angles and so many different variables and so many different dimensions that people are trying to get from it, that it's still being produced on Bordereau. People are now saying that I can solve it with AI. Um, yes, you may solve some of it. You may solve some of the challenges that are going on with it, but the complexities of upstream and downstream requirements are so varied from different carriers, from different brokers, and all the different sides that the MGA has to supply, that you've still got those complexities. And if you can get a standardized border, a standardized data output that's going to come in, that the AI tools will help give you consistent data output, but they won't solve all of those problems in one fell swoop.
Yeah. At what point do you feel and that the bordereaux or processing bordereaux becomes a bottleneck for growth for MGAs or even carriers and reinsurers?
It comes down purely to the volume of quality data. If you're producing bad quality data that people have got to spend hours and hours and hours validating, resolving, doing other bits and pieces with it to make it look good and the data quality be solved, that's where you're going to get the bottleneck, because you cannot process the writtens, cannot process the pays, you cannot get the money out the door for everybody to be paid in within that process. So you end up with lots of bottlenecks. So if you start to improve what that quality of data is all about, you're getting then the throughput and you won't get those bottlenecks. And you can resume your growth and other bits and pieces. Now, you can get systems, you can do other bits and pieces to help you with that process. But if you've got a throughput of information that directly goes from point A to point B, and you start to look at some form of straight through transactional processing model, then you're going to start to improve how that quality of data is sent and ingested by the sending and receiving parties. That can really then give you that control and give you that speed of throughput. And the information flow is almost instantaneous. It doesn't need to wait until a border. It doesn't need to wait until month end. It can start to be, if you can get a transactional trust going on and build a transactional trust, then you can start to work on transactional straight through processing.
Yeah, you mentioned data as the cornerstone of everything being possible. Where do you typically see data breaking down? Is it at submission? Is it when they transform it or when they're doing reporting?
In terms of that process, I think it breaks down at different intervals, all stages. If you don't get your binder set up, if you don't get your cover holder set up, or if you don't get your risk submission coming through well, that then feeds into creating problems down the line where you've got to do transformations, you've got to do corrections in your data. So having the controls and putting the guidewires in or guidelines in at the beginning of that process helps you working through that process. And I think with a number of processes you've got going on, that if you don't then do the transformations or don't need to do the transformations, that then flows through and you can get your processing data process flowing through successfully. That then feeds into the requirements of that report build. What do you want from that report? Who wants what from that report? It's about getting those requirements set. The solid data coming through, it's about making sure that your design on that report is coming out to give you that accurate information.
Yeah, and then we I would say everything starts at submission because it's your point of entry. How structured or unstructured is the intake in reality?
I think critically that the submission is as you say, is making sure that data is ingested into the system, whether that's through an automated engine, whether that's through an AI engine, whether that's directly from a user inputting that submission. There are a number of things. There are a number of things that you can do.
Yeah, and those three options carried different, I would say, different speed times and lead times. How much time do you believe is actually spent, let's say, fixing or reworking the data into something that's usable down the line?
It depends on the organization, I guess. Some have got teams of people. They're outsourced teams. They've got internal teams. They can do the fixes. They can do the transformations. If you're a smaller startup carrier organization or your smaller startup MGA, you don't have that. So you've got to rely on systems, implementing AI solutions that will do the verifications, the checks, the double checks that you've got on that data that's been submitted to make sure it's correct.
But then we say we start and we do everything manual until we cannot do it anymore, or it becomes like a bigger pain. What would you say is the tipping point that a startup MGA, let's take that one for example, should be focused on when to move from a manual process to an actual leveraging technology to be able to scale?
I think ultimately it needs to be in the early stages. It needs to be before it's too much, before it's you can't cope with it. You need to be thinking when you start your MGA, what is your data throughputs? What is your data lineage going to be? How is that going to flow? And with the startup scene and the startup world, having the different processes built out from a very early stage, maybe not from day one, but before it gets too much, because once it is too much, it's very hard to claw back because you're just always trying to play catch up and you're in a never ending cycle of trying to catch up with the bits and pieces you've got. And you'll end up with having a bad set of processes that you've got to then try and recover from. From a startup MGA perspective, you need to be thinking about it's a data first world. You need to look at what's coming through in that data. You need to look at how it's going to process and what it's going to do and implement processes, systems, solutions that are going to aid you to grow and not have to have a sort of a mass employment that you need to put in to manage lots of data processing and updates.
And still, I hear over and over, I'll fix it when it starts to break, when it's broken. How much downstream pain do you feel is actually originated from poor intake processes upstream?
Quite a lot. It's quite a heavy thing when you're putting in a process orientated, or if you're a manual process orientated organization, that trying to recover from that situation is that you never, in certain situations, you'll never go back and fix it because there's new problems, there's new challenges that as you grow, as you bring in new business and you bring on board new brokers, clients, whatever and insured, that you will you just never go back, and you're in a cycle of not going back anymore, and that thing that you should have fixed on day one is still there in day 365 and day 720.
Yeah, let's say if you could redesign submission intake from scratch today, what would you fix first?
Quality, breadth of the data, making sure that you know what your carriers and your insureds need, what the needs are of that binder that you're still putting on board, and ensuring that that's just captured from day one. And you're not cutting corners. You're not putting a minimal viable product in place. You're putting in the needs of your business from day one, from your first policy binding.
Yeah, that's fair. And then we fast forward and we see a lot of delegated authority setups involving different systems, let's say a policy admin system, a CRM, Bordereau tools, and the good old Excel, because all paths lead to Excel. Where do you see the biggest disconnect when an organization has grown to have all this technology in place?
I guess the biggest disconnect that we have is people adapting, fiddling, changing process and data as they're going through without following due process to meet the needs as quickly as possible. I think having disconnected systems in that process doesn't help with that. Each system, each process needs to be conjoined in a way that works for everything that's going on. And if you don't have that, then your throughput of data from submission to carrier is going to die. You're going to lose those bits and pieces. You're going to lose the quality of that information you've got there, and it's not going to come through in a way that you really needed to give a quality data set to carriers, to the insured, to whatever the side of the process is going to be. And God forbid that when and if a claim comes in, you haven't got all that information, then you're tripping yourself up with that as well.
Yeah, and then we want to enforce teams to use all the tech stack that we have because everything is important, everything is needed. How often do you see teams are forced to move between, let's say, all the systems in place to complete a single underwriting or a reporting task?
It's daily. It's not. It's a continual cycle. It's when you've submitted data to the carrier, the data is rejected, the data's come back, it needs to be corrected. You've got this happening on different levels. It's a continual cycle that eradicating the interchanges between systems and having a straight through processing approach will give you less of an interference of where things are going to go wrong.
Yeah, and then if we want to quantify, what have you seen is the real cost of now having that single unified view of the risk or even the data across all these multiple systems in place?
It's high. The volume of people that's looking at it, the volume of people that are doing different snapshots, and the way that reporting is done in the system, it's your ultimate cost of binding a risk becomes quite high if you break it down. So if you're binding 1,000 risks a month, breaking that down, the cost is it builds up with all the different teams and people and transformations that are happening. That having that replaced and having that into sort of it will reduce the cost.
Yeah, and then if we move to the other side, company, let's say over trusting AI, where do you feel that becomes dangerous in underwriting or reporting decisions?
It's the risk of hallucination. It's the risk of the AI engines getting it wrong without guidelines, without having sort of a guidelines and boundaries that the AI tools and bits and pieces can't step outside of. As long as you've got those and you're doing responsible AI practices, then it works. But if you don't have that, that's when it doesn't work. And the risk is that you'll have wrong risk information, or risk information hasn't been processed. It's not correct, or it's hallucinated, or what it's done, or has made assumptions. And that's where you'll get some issues transformed.
Yeah, I would say that risk is always there, the hallucination piece. How should teams think about validating AI outputs in a regulated environment like delegated authority?
There are tools out there now where you can validate, cross-check, double-check, whether that's through an agent running, so as it's validating and looking as doing calculations, whether that's another AI tool that is double-checking what the original AI tool is doing, or it's a manual check, so you can have spot manual checks that you can have in the system. There are a number of approaches that can be done, but ultimately, anything that falls outside of any boundaries you set needs to have some form of human interaction into an oversight to make sure that you are not doing what you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, that's that's what they say. If you are very knowledgeable, AI will enhance you. If you're not knowledgeable, it will basically give you the enhance of your, but let's say, lack of knowledge at
Yes,
that point.
absolutely.
How do you feel for a company starting to do AI? They should approach it to actually make it a successful project.
They really need to drive it as an extension of their teams. There are people in there that are on the ground. Some people have been doing the jobs for 10, 20, 30 years. That it's an extension of what they do. And their input is invaluable to making these projects work. And if it's viewed as an extension, not a replacement, then a lot of these projects will become a success.
Yeah, and thinking about guardrails, what guardrails should exist before AI is allowed to influence underwriting or portfolio decisions?
It's about the rules. The rules of the binder, they're set. We know what they are. We know where they're already in the contracts. It's about making those into as a baseline. These are the guardrails you're doing because your rules of that binder, that policy, or whatever are already set. So you can deal with that side of things. Then you've got the common sense, security, and all the other bits and pieces that you have around setting different guardrails. So you're not sharing your data with everybody else. You're not pushing data out that hasn't been verified by a human, or at least add a human eyesight, sort of an eyeballing of the data before it goes out. So just verify and just make sure it's happy. Having those guardrails and setting those based on what you know, which are facts that are set in time that you know, and then you can build on those from there.
Yeah, and then we have this wave of we have to do something with AI. And in your experience, where do teams compromise today? Let's say, is it on speed, on accuracy, governance, and why?
I guess looking at it last year and the year before, there was a lot of nervousness around it, and there was a lot of criticalities about what do we want to do, how do we want to do it. This year, the boom has happened, it's exploded. And even in the first 4 months of this year, people have changed their opinion of we must do everything on AI to we must do everything within the realms of what we can achieve within AI. people are actually starting to realize, and they're trying to see, and they're understanding that it's not the replacement for everybody. It's a way of delivering what we need to deliver. And I think people are adapting. They are being very conscious about what can and can't break a company.
Yeah, for a person in C that's fearing being replaced by AI, how should they approach and embrace AI in their day to day?
In a controlled manner. And I'll come back to the same point I keep making. It's an extension of your people. It's not a replacement. And as long as you've got those boundaries, you go to your people, you ask them, you say, how can this help you? What can this do for you? What things, what projects, what wider things can we do with it? And then you start to look at what is going to save and improve performance within the business for those people.
And then we always have the mandate of growth. What happens, let's say, operationally, when you try to scale faster than what your data infrastructure allows you to grow?
Careful planning. Everybody needs to be talking. It can't be the CEO of the business or the chief underwriting officer has said, right, I need to grow my business by 30% in the next 12 months. It's got to be, the conversations need to be happening around, conversations need to be what you need to be doing, what you need to be doing, and working across all of the businesses so that every business area is talking to each other so they can actually work out from there.
You have led a lot of successful transformations in this aspect. How do you feel that communication should flow to make sure that everybody's on board and knows where we're going and embrace the change?
From the C-suite down, agree at the top level and then have communication pathways. It's the only way, and be clear and be transparent with everybody. This is what we're trying to do. These are the common goals. These are what we're trying to succeed at. And ultimately, this is where we're trying to get to. And through workshops, presentations, videos, whatever the company uses, having that communication channels up and down, and having open door policies with things and driving things forward, and not working through a toxic environment just gives you that communication pathways and gets everybody on board.
Yeah, that's fair. And then we have seen the MGA model scale and grow a lot. And reinsurers start to demand better reporting because they want to make sure that their money is being well managed in the best possible way. How do you feel operational maturity around data becomes a competitive advantage for the MGA and for the reinsurer providing the capacity?
It make the having the data in such a wide, easily accessible format just gives the DMGA the ability to pivot to whatever the requirements are set by reinsurers, carriers, or whoever it is that's asking for that information. If it takes you 3 weeks to design a report and then to generate the data out, you've lost 3 weeks of profitability that you potentially could have had. If you're turning that around and you've got a report that's coming out of one of your data systems, one of your AI tools that you can do within half an hour, you're showing that you can actually give better results, better time, and turn things around quicker. And they'll give you more business.
Yeah, everybody wants more business. As I always say,
Exactly.
I haven't seen an opportunity that I say, oh no, I have too much money on my plate. Like everybody wants to have more business. And looking ahead, what do you feel will separate MGAs that scale successfully from those that get, let's say, stuck operationally and basically diminishing their life?
It's those with the data first mentality. There are so many now that have taken that on board of all the changes that have come out in the last 10 years of this data first mentality and being able to pivot, being able to deliver quick information that is useful and tangibly gives benefits to all parties. They're going to be the ones that are able to grow better, faster, and quicker than we need to make those businesses grow and give the MJs what they need.
Yeah, and what would you say to be that data first mentality, data first led type of MGA? What do these MGAs need to be doing right now in order to become that?
They need to be looking at their processes. They need to look at anything that's manual, anything they can improve with transformation, with a change in technology, a change in the way they're doing things. The tools are out there for these people to do this, and they just need to look at what they are and just have a look at themselves from the beginning and look at from the ground up and see what can be done, when it can be done, and whether or not it's small changes that come in piecemeal over time, or it's one massive transformation project. Depends on the size of the organization and what's actually needed.
Yeah, and doing the opposite perspective, what do these MGAs need to avoid 100% because it won't basically help them in the future?
Plan first. Don't go 2 feet into making knee-jerk reactions to problems that have occurred. actually take a step back, a holistic view or a 1,000-foot view of your organization, and look at where those problems are, look at where the gaps are, and where the issues lie in, and build the picture, and don't just go and try and firefight. And it's the whack-a-mole effect. It doesn't always work. You've got to go back. You've got to take a step back, take a look at it, and see what pragmatically you can do to build a picture for a 1, a 2, a 5 year transformation.
If you were advising an MGA, let's say a CEO of an MGA, a chief underwriting officer was listening to you, how can they start to craft that plan to actually be successful for the next 3 to 5 years?
Get a team around you. Build a team that understands what needs to be done. Change people, and list other bits and pieces that can help make those decisions and help and understand where the problems lie, rather than just going. You be talking to people, but that's not a CEO or CEO's role. You need to put the people around you that's gonna drive that and is gonna give you that picture and that view.
Amazing, Adrian. I really enjoyed our conversation. Really appreciate the time. And thanks, everybody. This was Inside Delegated Authority with Adrian Soper. See you next time.
Thank you very much. Cheers, Daniel.
Thank you.